Good afternoon and welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint Podcast. We are coming at you on December 4th, 2020. Looks like we're, spiking into new COVID lockdowns and a lot of other nonsense related to that. But before we get into any of the topics, let me introduce you to our panel. So up in our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And up in our right-hand corner, we have our Screaming Eagle of Freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. I also wanted to take a moment to tell you that if you wanted to comment on the show or if you had any suggestions for future topics on our COVID lockdowns or, people who've been affected by riots or other such, you can contact us at libertariancounterpoint.com. If it's during the show, we may try and answer it in a bonus section at the end. But certainly we are more than interested in interviewing anybody who's been affected by COVID lockdowns, or also too, if you're considering exiting the state of California as well. We've interviewed a few people on that on the show, and we certainly look forward to understanding those perspectives going into the future. So the topics of the day, we are looking at more, a spike in cases of COVID around the world and in the country. And that's causing us to look more at some lockdowns, especially in some of the blue states. But one of the things that brings up is the issue of vaccines. So we've been hearing quite a bit about vaccines lately, that's something that's on the way. And one of the big questions that brings up, especially from a libertarian perspective, is will people willingly take those vaccines? And if not, will the government make it mandatory? We've heard a little bit recently, some of the presidents have talked about, past presidents rather, have talked about taking these vaccines live, on air to try and encourage this. I think former President Bush, Clinton, and Obama recently have suggested they would. So anyways, as far as issues of safety or any of those things, you guys have any thoughts on this? Should people take these vaccines? And if they don't willingly, should they be forced to?
Well, if I could go first, give Leon the last word. I don't think they would need to personally. I don't think they would go down that route. Not sure about the legalities of it there. I think you could make, like has been discussed, at least in some of the news articles and so on, that they can force healthcare workers to vaccinate and that kind of thing. But I don't think they're going to do the general forcing, and I don't think they would need to. I think enough people would voluntarily do it. There'll be some outliers that, for whatever reason, think it's a conspiracy or think that they just don't want to. It's bad for them, that kind of thing. There'll be some of those. But hey, if you are, I don't understand the logic behind saying that, you've got to do it because you could infect someone. Well, get the vaccine then if you're worried about that, right? And then you'll be immune. Correct? So what do you care if your next door neighbor or your hairstylist doesn't get vaccinated? If you got vaccinated, then you're good to go. You're not going to get it. Correct? If the vaccine really works, if it's safe and effective, then you're not going to get it. And so if your hairdresser doesn't take the vaccine, and they get COVID, they're standing on top, over the top of you, messing with your hair and breathing all over you, and COVID's entering your body, but your antibodies are there from the vaccine to fight it off. It could be from any other source, and it will fight it off, right? So that's that argument. I've never understood it. People can still do it about all kinds of stuff. About vaccines, these anti-vaxxers, oh my God, they don't want to get vaccinated. Well, they're going to give it to someone. Well, You got vaccinated. Okay. So anyway, enough of that.
Well, Tim, real quick, as a sort of a rebuttal to that, I guess, a devil's advocate on this side, but the reason some of them often attack the notion of people saying that, hey, you took the vaccine, that should be good enough for you, is the issue of, I guess, some people, the vaccine maybe not being effective for, or they just simply can't take the vaccine. And so therefore they say, well, if you get to herd immunity, then the idea is that, you'll protect those people too. From a libertarian perspective, I do have a bit of a problem with saying you've got to force a person to do something so you protect somebody else. Clearly that hasn't stopped us from ruining people's lives economically.
That's exactly right.
So anyways, Leon, did you want to jump in on this? Or?
Well, I mean, there's a huge debate here that is ongoing, that is individual liberties versus public health. Okay. But, in all cases, I tend to be an absolutist in the sense that individual liberties must win. Now, I can see the precautions that we must take, but there is a huge externality in this thing, in the sense that if I have the disease, I could infect someone else. Sure, that can happen, but we can take the necessary precautions. But the problem it comes up is, why do we have to only focus on this particular risk? Why? We have the common flu, we do, which is a risk to I could endanger someone else if I do have the common flu. Nobody talks about shutting down the economy, or nobody talks about forcing me to take some vaccine or anything like that. We drive our cars, and God knows we can kill people doing that. Every year on our freeways, 45,000 people die on our freeways, and maybe a double that amount get. I'm sorry. Yeah, and a double that amount get injured on the freeways. Why are we only focused on this risk? That is what I don't understand. So individual liberties must win. We can take the precautions, and those who want to take the vaccine, they can take the vaccine. Those who do not wish to take the vaccine, they don't have to. All this conspiratorial nonsense about, they're planning this, they're going to control our lives, it's a bunch of junk. But individual liberties must win on this point. We take the vaccine if we want to. We don't take it if we don't want to. That's it.
Yep. There you go.
They're gosh, there was something I had on the tip of my tongue on. Wasn't COVID. It was
swimming pools. The dangers of swimming pools. Lots of people die in swimming pools every year.
That's right.
You don't need a swimming pool. You could just cover them all up with dirt, and nobody would die in a swimming pool. Yeah,
but we'll die of something else. Okay,
yeah.
That's the point, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, that does you jog my memory on exactly what it was I wanted to jump in on.
There you go.
But so the idea though is that this has never really been quantified to us, because like you said, we get the flu every year. The flu comes through, and a certain number of people die. It's usually somewhere in the 30,000 to 60,000 range, somewhere in there.
Like
that, and so a certain amount of people die on the roads every year from driving, and yet we don't reduce the speed limit to 15 or 20 miles an hour for everybody. So I mean, the question is, and this is what's never been brought up by sort of the science-minded people pushing all these lockdowns, but what is the quantification of when we should, be taking away people's liberty and forcing them to vaccinate, or forcing them to stay in their homes and shut down their businesses? I mean, we've certainly never seen a quantification of, why a Walmart can stay open and a mom and pop business has to close. So,
Exactly.
So why, Sam Walton's family gets made wealthy, or, and it's no knock against them specifically. They didn't cause these laws, but why the government favors them as a winner and shuts down, Joe Schmo down the street, who just wants to make a buck selling pizzas or shoes or whatever. So
cutting hairs.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this is the problem. I think this is something we have spoken about before. This is what happens when the government start picking winners and losers. The government start deciding what is essential and what is not. We are allowing football players and basketball players to jump around, dance around, dunk a ball, and do all these sort of things. But a little guy down the street And these guys are millionaires, most of them are. But this guy's little guy down the street running a little mom and pop show, cutting people hair or doing whatever they do, and they can't open because they are big risk. They are big risk to society. What about them guys, the millionaires who playing football and basketball out there? They're not a risk too?
Yeah.
This is madness.
Yeah.
We cannot let the government make these choices. Our liberties are being taken away and they'll be lost unless we stand up and say no to this crap.
Yeah. Well, and certainly madness is the word, Leon, of the day and the word of 2020, I think. You've hit the nail on the head there as far as this stuff goes. And but that's the key issue is that, nobody's ever made a quantification. It's just fear. Duck and hide now. The government's told you to because fear.
Yes.
We haven't had a quantification that says, okay, when we get to X level, this is why we're doing something, and that should really be a plan that we should agree upon in advance, not something that we just simply, hysteria because the unknown. Liberty is something that we have to be. Brave enough to own. We can't simply have, I guess liberty isn't really for the meek, I guess. And that's what we're finding right now. Yeah. But, with respect.
But the point is though, it is fine for us to bow down to science. Okay. In the sense that science have proven X, Y, Z, and we have to, take whatever precautions we have to do because the science have indicated that. But this is not what's going on. What we are dealing with here is just arbitrary dictates of our government. Yeah. Look at their closing the schools, say, for instance, based upon what?
Yeah.
Based upon what?
That is exactly what I wanted to get into for our next topic, Leon, is, when we talk about these arbitrary ways that we're deciding when we shut down, who closes down. So essentially Fauci early on had come out and said that the schools needed to be closed, aside from all of his other arbitrary mandates where, he said, don't wear masks at the beginning of this. Then later on, he said, wear masks. And then later on in an interview, he said, well, the reason he said that in the first place, don't wear masks, is because he wanted to preserve them for frontline workers, which means he just flat out lied to everybody about what he believed the effectiveness of these things were anyways, which is just, beyond the pale. But regardless, here's yet another issue that, where he's sort of flip-flopped on this. He came out and he said initially that, it was appropriate to close the schools. Now he has come out recently in the last few days and said the schools, he said, open the schools, but close the bars. So, maybe the bars is another one of those arbitrary things as well. Who knows? But certainly the schools, it's been shown in many places that kids are not really at much risk from this at all. I mean, we're talking about 1 in a million, essentially, is the type of risk that they have imposed upon them. And then to boot, it's also being said that they're not also likely to be high transmitters. That seems hard to believe, but I guess mainly it's because maybe they're just not that affected by it, so they're not spreading it as much, I guess. But regardless, he's flip-flopped again, and Rand Paul recently called him out on that on an interview, on a television interview, and said, "Hey, why did you say close them now and then not close them? What's your rationale behind them?" And we don't really get a lot of rationale. It's just simply, danger. Shut everything down. At first, it was flatten the curve. We flattened the curve, but we didn't really see an end to the lockdown. So I don't know. You guys have any thoughts on that too?
Well, first of all, Fauci was fired, so I don't know why we even listened to that ignoramus in the first place. And second of all, he could be coming from the data that is showing that schools are much safer to keep open and much better for the overall society. Just read that there's a new report, can't remember the state, Maine, I think, where the test scores have dropped 6 times, so 600%. The test scores for the kids. I guess they still test them, even though they're at home. And so there you go. You've got, and they're at home. I guess they could cheat too, but anyway. So you could make a case that bars are not as necessary as schools. I mean, that's pretty easy case to make. So I can understand maybe what reasons behind his flip flop, but the guy's just a moron to begin with. So this new guy is much better informed, and he should be listened to, not this Fauci. What do you think, Leon?
Well, this issue is the second big issue that Fauci was wrong on. Okay, first the mask issue which you raised, Jason, and then he came up with this school issue which he was also wrong on. And Rand Paul was right. I looked at the video that he sent. Rand Paul was absolutely right. All of this is being done without science behind it. Okay, even this mask now they're telling us, okay, we have to wear the mask, but we're wearing the mask, and what's happening to the COVID numbers? They're still rising. So there's something else going on within our society. Yes, we should take the precautions. Yes, we should social distance. And if we want to wear a mask, fine, we should wear it. But all over the place, they are mandating these things without science behind it.
Yeah.
And Fauci don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm sorry, he doesn't. I know he's supposed to be this world famous epidemiologist or whatever the hell he is. But he don't know what the hell he's talking about, seriously.
Yeah, he's a bureaucrat. That's all he's
a bureaucrat,
done.
Yes.
He's not a doctor that goes out there and works, and actually just been a bureaucrat. So he can just stuff it. And I lost my train of thought there. Oh, well, anyway.
Well, Tim, I must have been sort of out of the loop in the last day or so. That was Fauci fired in the last day or so?
I thought, by Trump. Okay. I mean, he's not the head guy as far as Trump goes. I thought it was this, what's his name?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if he was fired from the task force, but he was certainly removed as the head guy. There's another guy.
Right. Yeah, they've got.
I forgot his name. You're right. There's I'll check it out and let you guys know. I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah, but certainly yes, and the idea that there's any legitimate science to the idea that these people, these leaders who tell us it's okay to go to a to a Walmart store and be around a whole bunch of other shoppers, and the idea that they tell us it's okay to attend essentially a riot or a peaceful protest without a mask and a bullhorn and be surrounded by people, as we've seen many of these leaders, I believe Garcetti and Lori Lightfoot and some of these others, they just and yet they're very comfortable shutting other people down from worship. Yeah. We'll talk about that in another show as well, but
well, I think I remember what I was going to say. The mask wearing compliance rate across the United States is 88%. Last I checked, and so there's all these precautions being made, and this virus is so virulent that it will infect you. I don't care if you're wearing your dumb mask. I mean, there's certainly not an properly fitted N95 mask that's been changed out every 2 hours. There are all these weird, bandanas and loose fitting masks that fog if a mask can fog your glasses, what is that coming out of the mask that's fogging your glasses, may I ask? It is water vapor. And if you have COVID, that water vapor is filled with the virus. Okay. So it's just nonsense in a sense. And and it's never going to get to the point where we're wearing properly fitted, properly disposed of on a regular basis N95 masks. It's just impossible at any point. I mean, unless you're Japan, maybe, but it doesn't matter. This stuff, you're going to get it, and that's the whole problem now, and it's going to kill people. Okay, so what to do about that? And do it in a realistic fashion that doesn't eviscerate whole industries. Even Southwest just let everybody know that for the first time in its history, it's going to be laying people off.
All right.
So,
yes.
3,800 or some number like that. And it's just. I mean, I can tell too. I mean, I used to have to wait in line to depart from San Diego in the morning. for sometimes 20, 30 minutes, just getting, I call it the conga line, and you get in there and you slowly move into your position to take off. It can take a long time. Well, I've been just taxiing out and off I go because there's nobody else there. I'm telling you, it's eviscerated. The aviation, at least the passenger side, is eviscerated right now.
Yes.
And it's just it ain't gonna get better anytime soon, I don't think. But anyway.
Well, as long as government making their edicts without science or anything behind it, it ain't gonna get better anytime soon.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of other things that we seem to be having a hard time measuring, real quick, before we get to the end of the show, the results of the election. There's been a lot of issues of potential fraud. We've certainly seen a lot of individual cases. Certainly, it looks like there might be fraud here and there, and the Trump team is trying to go to court with different pieces of evidence to show that. Well, one piece of evidence that just surfaced, and I thought this was certainly noteworthy. They aired it yesterday on a few different channels, but was Georgia's Fulton County. They claimed they had a leaky pipe during the vote counting. And the video footage, there was, I guess, video footage of the counting room that was going on. And so a person who was in charge came around telling everybody, okay, we got to shut down. There's a leaky pipe. Everybody get out of the building. And so all of the poll watchers were sent out. And that means the people, who were supposed to be looking for, inconsistencies to make sure essentially that the election is legitimate. That's the whole purpose those people were there. So after they left the room, the video shows they pulled boxes of ballots out from suitcases of ballots out from underneath tables that they had been stored under and started counting. And these were, the people who, just told everybody to go home. Yeah. And, we need to, we have a leaky pipe. And of course, that leaky pipe, I don't think has ever been documented. I don't think anybody's ever been able to verify that leaky pipe. But certainly, I advise people, if you're interested, go look for that video. Who knows how much this could have affected an election? I don't know if this is in the thousands or tens of thousands of votes, but it's clearly fraud. Somebody should go to jail for something like this. I mean, the idea, I don't see how you can cut it any other way. You tell people to go home and that you can't count, and then you start counting. That's the law. Those people are supposed to be there to make sure, to ensure our sovereignty, what's the word? Our enfranchised
integrity of our elections.
Yeah. So
I would have no problem if Joe Biden won this election fair and square. I wouldn't like the result, but if he won it fair and square, I have no problem whatsoever. Okay, when Obama won, I didn't like the result, but I had no problem with it because, as far as we know, it was a relatively clean election. Both of elections were relatively clean. But here we have this particular election. There are so many oddities in this election. I will probably take up a whole show trying to describe them all. So at one time, I was willing to give everybody the benefit of a doubt. Oh, well, maybe this could be explained. Maybe there are innocent explanations here or innocent explanations there. But what we have now is a mountain of affidavits sworn under penalty of perjury of criminal conduct. Then we have this video that shows criminal conduct. There's no doubt about it. Yesterday in Nevada, we have testimony, proof, dead people voted. About 40,000 people double voted. We had people. There was some other category of illegal voting right here in Nevada.
Yeah. Has it actually been proven though yet, Leon, or had they just made the allegation and not proven it yet in court? I'm not sure.
40,000 people who double vote. The out-of-state voters, I think, is proven. 40,000 out-of-state voters voted, and Joe Biden only won by 33 or 34,000 votes. So there's a lot of stuff going on out here that I can no longer give the benefit of the doubt. I think Donald Trump have a very good case to contest every one of these states that Joe Biden supposedly won, especially the 6 critical states that in play right now. Well, I see we have knucklehead patrol. I better shut up for the time being. Sorry, Tim.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Well, that's the we're getting near the end of the show now, and that's the sound for our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. Certainly, the election sovereignty is something we'll continue to follow. But getting back to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, something where we like to end it with something really stupid or silly that some politician or somebody else in the media has said lately, and bringing us back to what we started the show on. These sort of knuckleheads that are sending us all into lockdown. LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuhl voted to shut down restaurants due to the dangers they impose. And here's what she actually said when she did that vote. She said, "It's a bit of magical thinking on everybody's part to think that that any restaurant anywhere that the server keeps a 6-foot distance from the table." So she said that, then she further went on to say that outdoor dining is probably more dangerous in terms of contagion than any other kind of business. So that vote went down 3-2 in Los Angeles County to shut the restaurants, and that means outdoor dining too. And she was one of those votes to shut it down. So essentially a decisive vote. What did she do after making this vote? And telling us this was the most dangerous activity that any business could be engaged in. She went out to eat at her favorite restaurant, and she was caught. And her staff went on to say that, well, it was her favorite restaurant, and she just wanted to let them know personally, and she felt bad for them. I mean, at what point? What point are we going to roll out the guillotines? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Gosh. Yeah. What happened to the masks? The servers wear masks, and the whole premise, of course, which is probably all faulty as we realize this virus is extremely contagious, is that if you're within 6 feet, you just wear a mask and everything's A-okay, right? I mean, that's what they've been telling us for the last year almost, not quite. And so, when you go out to the restaurant, yes, you're not wearing your mask because you're trying to eat a meal. So you're around your little table, and along comes the server. They have a mask, right? So they're within 6 feet of you, and they have a mask, and all the other patrons are supposedly either separated by at least 6 feet, or there's barriers set up and all this kind of stuff, right? Okay. And sometimes they're outside. Now she's saying outside it's terribly dangerous. Well, okay. So anyway, what's the big deal if the server is wearing a mask? Why can't they, especially outside? But anyway. And then of course she goes out and eats. Yeah, well, that's par for the course, obviously, from what we've seen from these little miniature Napoleons.
Yes.
Or I guess in her case, she would be a miniature Cleopatra or something.
Well, we've just about reached the end of the show. Thanks for bringing us for a landing on that topic, Tim.
Okay. Sorry, Leon.
No problem.
Maybe in the overtime, but I think we might have had a question for overtime. But so if you're listening live, stick around and we'll answer that question. But as far as the live show goes, or the recorded show, thank you all for joining us again for Libertarian Counterpoint. We hope to catch you at the next one. You can see our shows at libertariancounterpoint.com, Facebook Libertarian Counterpoint, and on public access in Sacramento as well. Thanks so much, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Yep. Bye. See you soon.
Yeah. Okay, we are now in the overtime portion of our show on December 4th. 2020, and we had a question come in, and it says, I'm trying to live my life. I condemn compulsory public. And this is from Wisiji Joram Kienyojo. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. He has an awesome icon there of Milton Friedman, so I don't care, what what his name is or where he's from. He's got
from
our,
Uganda.
Uganda.
Yeah, he's from Uganda.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's funny. This is one of these things. I hope we can get a guest on in the future to talk about, a little more about what's going on with liberty in other parts of the world, especially around COVID. Certainly, maybe we might reach out, to have a little more, a few more guests on this in the future. But yeah, it's terrible, the stuff that's happening in this country as far as shutting people down. I mean, without just taking away liberty for trading it for fear, literally, because there's not much science behind it. And, I'm sure that this is pretty bad in other places in the world too. Do you guys have any thoughts to share?
We are supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. We are not free right now, and we are not being very brave about it. We need to go out there and stop these people from doing what they're trying to do to us. They're trying to tell us to stay at home when we probably could still be going out there with necessary precautions. They're trying to tell us that the Thanksgiving we can't have certain people over. They want to reach into our homes and tell us what we should or should not do. Something is wrong here. We are losing our liberties. We are losing our associated freedoms. And if we don't do something about it, we're not going to like the country that we'll be living in a few years. We better stop this and stop this fast.
Yeah. Robert. Well, yeah, I can't really add much to that. That's good stuff, Leon.
Well, let me read Robert's question then. So Robert de Madera, a past guest on our show, he has a question. We don't see from all causes than expected, despite being in 9-month deadly pandemic. Has there been a pandemic in history that didn't add to the yearly trend of deaths?
Wow, I don't know the history behind it, so I wouldn't know. Yeah, but that's a good question. If it's so bad, it should skew the numbers in a bad way, and yeah, we haven't. I'm not sure if that's worldwide or if that's just in the United States or what. But yeah, the total numbers of deaths has not risen, and so what's going on there? Maybe I don't know.
Well,
good question though.
It's a good question, but I do believe the Spanish flu, which was in 1918 to 1920, did cause a spike in the number of deaths in the United States and worldwide. I believe that is true. I'll have to check to make sure, but I think that's probably the only case in history that I'm aware of. Or maybe the Black Plague in Europe. Maybe the Black Plague in Europe did cause spike in deaths.
Yeah.
So,
the sad thing about the Black Plague in Europe is we can't really compare, loss of liberty necessarily here as to what was going on there, because that was such a different time. But things like the Spanish flu and other things, that have hit us in the last century, I don't think we've ever addressed anything in this totalitarian type of way where people just send edicts down, from on top. They yell safety, and then they tell us, shut down your business, stay at home, don't talk to your relatives. I mean, the idea that you could have a dying relative in a hospital and be told that you cannot go in to see them is just absolutely beyond the pale. And this isn't like a special case where, somebody's got Ebola or something like that, and they're worried about somehow them taking it out of the hospital and just outbreaking to the rest of the country. And this is something where there's lots and lots of people who are being affected by this, so it's not like the cat's out of the bag, I guess. It's not like one person has COVID in the country and they got him in a room and they don't want to risk that spreading through the rest of the country. It's already out there. It would be like the flu.
Exactly.
Can you imagine if your grandmother had the flu and they said, sorry, you can't go in to see her even though she may be on her deathbed because the flu, it's just, we can't risk anybody else, any of the 5 of your 10 neighbors who don't have the flu getting the flu. I think it's just obscene. I don't know.
It all comes back to the exercise of our freedoms, the exercise of our liberty. It all comes back to that, in the sense that government are making these edicts without science, without any constitutional authority to do so, I mean, I was very glad to see the Supreme Court slap down Andrew Cuomo. I think we'll talk about that in about religious gathering. Yeah. It's just that government is acting so arbitrarily, and we are just supposed to bow down like little sheep and servants, and this is a problem.
Not only that, well, we watch the shepherds sit there and engage in all the activity they're telling the sheep not to engage. Sorry, Tim, I cut you off there.
Well, I'm just saying, it's so politicized that I'm going to politicize it even more. I'm still expecting that when Joe Biden gets sworn in to be president, all of a sudden, those puppy tails wag faster, kitties purr louder, and COVID goes away. All of a sudden, sunshine and lollipops for everyone. So we'll see. Maybe I'm totally
you forgot
a nutcase. Maybe
you forgot the sky will be bluer, Tim.
Yeah, sky's bluer, sun's brighter. Yep. Clouds are whiter. Everything's hunky dory now that Joe Biden is our man. Has delivered us from Donald Trump. Praise the Lord God, Joe Biden.
Remember, the people he's appointing are literally superheroes.
That's right.
Yeah, they are. At least they are superheroes in reality to the military-industrial complex. That
I guess that's true.
They deliver in a big way.
They deliver, and you're never gonna forget it either.
Yeah.
If you live in a foreign nation in a Muslim land, especially Yemen, being starved to death. Thank you very much. But Trump continued that too. So just to be fair.
Yeah. Although I will say that at least with Trump, it doesn't sound like he's really expanded it, and he's at least made a few moves rhetorically towards, and I guess in a real way, moving a few troops out. I guess that last move he talked about making, reducing the numbers in Afghanistan by I think a little more than half. I think before leaving office, which made everybody angry. Made all the superheroes angry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean that's the best thing he could do at this point, at least late, but at least he could. But and then but on the other hand, he has enjoined his military advisors on a best first strike potentiality for Iran, and he did one other thing, can't remember what it is, but anyway, he's looking into first strike on Iran. I mean, it's like seriously, he's just He's just all over the place.
Exactly. I think of Trump as a little bit of a loose cannon. Sometimes he's pointed at the bad guys, and sometimes he's pointed at the hull of your ship.
Exactly.
But you look at Biden, and all the time he's pointed at the hull of your ship.
Jason, I don't know if Biden doesn't even know where he's pointing, quite frankly. So,
whether the people who are aiming him are always pointing.
They move him around. Get him this way. There you go. Over there.
Yeah. But the only thing about we talk about Biden assuming the presidency. If this thing in Georgia looks like it was well planned, okay? Let's face it, it was well planned. It just happened that they got caught, but it was well planned. There's no doubt about that. So if this thing is really the tip of an iceberg of a major conspiracy in this election, Joe Biden will not take the presidency. And I hope that is what happens out to be, because I believe there's too much evidence of something went wrong on election night. Seriously.
Yeah. And I can't speak to all the other things, but clearly that incident in Georgia, I can't see how you could not think a crime has been committed there. I mean, and this really, and the word I was looking for earlier in the show was suffrage. I mean, this really erodes the suffrage of all of us, in this country, when, you got people who literally are stuffing the ballot box and, forcing the people out who are supposed to be looking in and ensuring that this is a free and fair election. But anyways,
this is the problem. We are beginning to reach a point where we are endorsing lawlessness in the land.
Yeah.
That's what we are doing. Because if we're going to allow this thing in Georgia to just go by, we say, okay, well, it was a little bit of mistakes here and mistakes there. That's not the point. That's not the point. Every time we allow an illegal vote, we are disenfranchising one legal vote. That's what we are doing. All of us are the victims of these people and their horrible work on election night. That's what it is. We are victims.
Yeah.
The injustice was done to us.
Yeah. Very true.
Yep. I think let's it doesn't seem like we have any other comments, so let's leave it there. Leon, you got the last word today in Liberty, and we'll wrap up this overtime, and we got another show to do. So we will see you all at the next one. Thanks so much for joining us on our overtime today, and